Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Westbridge Church. My name's Jeremiah. I'm one of the pastors here. Great to have you with us. Hello to everybody joining us online. Thanks for participating there. If you're in a parent viewing room, great option if you have small kids you prefer to keep with you during the service. And those of you joining us in our cafe, love to have you here. Real quick before we jump into the talk today, over the last few years, I just want to mention this. We have been working really hard to create a really good program who have special needs, families who have kids with special needs. And what we want to do is not just create a separate program, but we want to integrate them into their respective age groups. And so we've created this program called the Buddy Program. And all it is people who come alongside kids with special needs and go with them into their respective age groups. And just kind of walk along with them just as a helper and a buddy through that whole thing. And as our church has grown, we've seen more and more families with kids with special needs. And we want to make sure that we have a buddy for each of those families. And so we want to serve them as best as we can. If you would be interested in being a part of that and saying, you know what, I could commit to maybe every other week being a buddy at one of our services and go through service with one of those kids or students, that would be so helpful. If that's something that you go, man, I think I'd be interested in that, you can just talk to Angie, is going to be at the Next Steps area right after service, and just go up and go, hey, I need to talk to Angie about being a buddy. And they'll get you situated. If that's something that really pings your heart or you feel like that's a great next step for you, we'd love to have you join us there. We're in week 4 of a series called Stop Going to Church. We're wrapping it up today. So next week, like the video said, like Lauren said, man, we're switching gears. We're going into 4 services next week. So don't come at this time next week. You'll be right in the middle of service. So instead, adjust accordingly. You're going to have to come a little bit earlier or a little bit later, depending on what you want to do there. But I would encourage you to invite a friend, because we're going to be doing a series all about parenting, all about family, like how do you navigate the different seasons of parenting. And now we're across, my wife and I are literally across all the seasons right now. So our youngest just went into middle school, and then we've got a high schooler, and we've got one out of high school, and we've got another one that's married and about to have a kid. And so, yes, we're going to be grandparents. So this is all across the board. We're going to navigate this together. So we are fellow travelers. This is not come and learn all of our wisdom. This is we all need a little bit of help in this, right? And so great series to invite a friend to. I'd encourage you to invite a friend to join you next week as we kick that off. Now, as we wrap up this series, we've been saying stop going to church, right? Instead, be the church, because church is not a place, so it's not somewhere you go. The church is a people. So it's who we are. So let's stop going to church and let's be the church. And so we said we're going to sacrifice our preferences for the sake of those who are far from God. And then the second week we said, hey, would you say yes to joining a serving team? Take off the bib, put on the apron. If you remember that week, I had a bib and an apron. I said, take off the bib. The bib is all about serve me. The apron is all about I get to serve others. And so we want to be a church that takes off the bib and we put on the apron and we serve the people that God's bringing through our doors. And we had about between 70 and 80 people jump into a serving team that week. It's not too late to join a serving team. You can do that right on the Westbridge Church app. And then last week we talked about shifting from a consumer to contributor, that we would grow in generosity with the financial resources God's given us, that we would say, look, God's the owner. We're just the managers. He's entrusted it to us, and we want to return a percentage of what he has entrusted to us. And when we do that, our faith grows and God's kingdom moves forward. And then we issued the really cheesy, corny infomercial 90-day tithe challenge, and a bunch of people signed up for that. And I'm hearing encouraging stories from those who have begun that journey as well. So we started this all a few weeks ago, and the big verse that's really been driving this whole series is something that Jesus said to his disciples. In the very first century, Jesus was walking with his disciples, and he says this, I will build my church, and not even death will be able to overcome it. And when Jesus uses the word church, the word he uses for church is not the word that we kind of use as a church building. He uses the word ekklesia. It's a Greek word that really means a gathering or an assembly of people. And so what Jesus was saying was, I'm going to build a whole gathering or a group of people or a movement of people, and death's not going to be able to stop it. He's talking to his disciples, and he goes, guys, at the end of your lives, your life will end, but this movement won't. And your life will end, but people are going to continue to gather, and it's going to grow, and it's going to pick up steam, and people are going to continue to gather and assemble around this idea that I am God come in the flesh to show who God is, to show how to have a relationship with God. And so Jesus predicted us, you and I are the fulfillment of his prophecy. We are the church. But as we grow as a church, that also creates a couple of dynamics that we need to be aware of as we continue to move forward into this next season. The first dynamic is this: Westbridge must grow larger and smaller at the same time. We must grow larger and smaller at the same time. As a church, we must keep growing larger. And it's not because we want to be a big church. It has nothing to do with it. It's because the need drives the function. As long as there are people in our community who have not experienced the love and grace of Jesus, then we will continue to make room for them here at Westbridge. And we're going to continue to invite them. We sent out a mailer this last week. A bunch of you got that. You kept responding on our social media. Yeah, we got it here, we got it here. When we first did a mailer 19 years ago, we sent it out to the same zip codes. It was 42,000 addresses that were in a 15-minute drive radius of the church. Same zip codes. This year, 19 years later, 90,000 addresses. This whole area has more than doubled. And so the area is growing. And so need drives the function. We know there's a lot of people moving into this area, and we want to invite them. So we never set out to be a big church. That wasn't the goal. We just want to make sure there's room for everyone who wants to join. That's why we're shifting into going to 4 services. So next week, 8, 9:30, or 11 if you're on Sunday, 7 at Thursday. And so we can create more opportunities than ever to invite our friends to participate. In fact, it's amazing to see what's happening as we continue to grow. And at some point, as we invite people to join this thing, people keep joining the church, this gathering of people, this movement that Jesus predicted he would start. And then every once in a while, people say to me, because as churches grow, there's a dynamic that as you grow, things change. You have to do things a little different to accommodate the numbers of people that are walking through our doors. It's why we're working hard and going, let's work with the architects in the city and we've just got city permits recently, and we're working with architects, and we want to build phase 2 because we want all of this space to turn into kids and student space and more room for kids and students for the next generation. And so as the church grows and as things change, this is what I get sometimes from people every once in a while: I don't like big churches. And I just go, well, I understand that. I understand where you're coming from, but you're not going to like Westbridge or heaven. It's like a big church there, I think. That's what it's going to be. And so we're going to keep growing. And it's not because we want to be a big church. It has nothing to do with that. It's because we simply won't turn anyone away. We're going to keep inviting people. Now, here's the dynamic. As the church grows larger, we've got to also grow smaller, because we don't want it to feel so large that you feel like you get lost in the crowd. And when people say, I don't like big churches, that's really what they're saying. I don't want to get lost in the crowd. I can't connect, and we can't let that happen, so we've got to grow smaller even as we grow larger, which means we've got 2 separate gatherings. We gather in our large group gathering Thursdays and Sundays, and then we have smaller groups called life groups that meet all over the area throughout the week. These are groups of about 10 to 15 people. They gather to share their lives and how they can apply what we've discussed in their own context. But can I tell you something? That's not our idea. We didn't come up with that. That's the way the early church always conducted themselves. In the very first century, the early church, recorded by Luke in the book of Acts, he says every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. Now, you don't have to dig too deep into this to realize that God is blessing what was happening. So what exactly is going on? They're doing some simple things pretty regularly. They're meeting in the temple courts, and then they're meeting in their homes. They're meeting in the temple courts, and they're meeting in their homes. This is what we do in our weekly gathering, our Sunday gathering. We do temple courts. The temple courts is us meeting on a regular basis in the Sunday gathering. That's us coming together in a large group gathering, Thursday gathering, Sunday gathering, now that we've added Thursdays. And here's why we do this. It's because we come together and we're very different people, right? We've got different family backgrounds. We've got different religious upbringings. We've got different personalities more than anything. And you come into a space like this, and you know what you have to do? You have to rub shoulders with somebody who's different than you. It forces you to rub shoulders with somebody different than you. And it forces you to rub shoulders with somebody who might be wildly different than you, who you might kind of, they're a little more salty than you would appreciate. And you kind of go, it makes it a little tough. And then you know what we do? We sing songs. Why do we do that? Like, why do we come into this room and sing songs? Well, here's why. These songs are really reminders. They're these prayers that are set to music. And suddenly, when I bring my salty self and you bring your salty self and we come together and whatever we've had, whatever fight we had in the minivan on the way over here, and we come into a room and then we sing a song like we introduced today. Like, had it not been for the Lord, had it not been for his grace, I'd still be stuck in chains. I'd still be in that grave. Had it not been for his love, I don't think I'd be here today had it not been for the Lord. Oh, yeah. And I remind myself of that, and the person next to me reminds themselves of that, and together we sing this, and we take our eyes off of the differences that we have with one another, and we focus on the one thing that unites us. And we do that in this setting. And it's something that happens internally in our hearts when we begin to remind ourselves this is what we have in common. So we have these large group gatherings. This is so important, where we connect. And it's like, man, you don't know every single person here, but you recognize I'm a part of something that's bigger than myself. I'm not on my own in this thing. And so we show up, and that's a part of the rhythm of what it means to follow Jesus, that we show up in the temple courts, and we look up, and we remind ourselves, I'm a part of something bigger than myself. But then it says that they also met in homes, and for us, that's life groups. Life groups are this way for us to get together in a smaller setting. It's groups of 10 to 15 people that get together in homes or restaurants or coffee shops or outdoors, or some of them meet here at the church. And they pray together, they support each other, they get to know each other. You see, following Jesus only happens in the context of community. The more that you follow Jesus, the more deeply entrenched in community you become. So they're meeting in the temple courts and they're meeting in their homes. Now, here's the dynamic of a growing church that we need to understand. When we first started the church 19 years ago, our very first service, we had 47 people. That's adults, kids, staff, somebody walking their dog out in front in the building, like we counted them, like it was just like everybody. And we were a small group at that point, right? And so the connection piece was really easy. It was easy for us to do the small group thing and stay connected. The difficult thing with that many people was, how do we pull off even just a service? How do we even do that? How do we do a weekly gathering? And so then, as the church grew, we got a little bit better at doing the weekly gathering. We wanted to make really accessible environments where it was easy to invite your friends. And as we did that, more people invited their friends, and the church started growing. And then that whole dynamic shifted. Connection was easy, but how do we pull off a weekly gathering? And eventually it became the weekly gathering. We can do that and we can pull that off. We got staffing, we can make that happen. But now, how do we make sure to stay connected? And the dynamic shifts. And so as a result of that, we've got to be very intentional about creating environments where people can connect relationally. Otherwise, all we end up with is a great weekly show. And we're not interested in doing that. And here's why. When you drift from people of faith, you drift from faith. It's the people that you surround yourself with that keep you moving on this track of faith. And if you feel isolated from the body of Jesus, eventually you feel isolated from Jesus. This is why some of you maybe at some point left the church, or maybe you're coming back after a long time. You slowly got isolated from the body of Christ. And you kind of thought to yourself, well, I can continue to believe even if I'm not connected to any sort of local church. I can still continue to believe in Jesus. And over time, what happened? You stopped believing. And there was no logical explanation for it. It's just that when you drift from people of faith, you start to drift from faith. That's because faith is not just vertical, not just I believe in Jesus, it's also horizontal. I live out my faith in the context of community. So, who is in your life? Who knows your name? Who's encouraging you? Who's bearing your burdens? Who's really just walking with you in this journey of faith? Is there any setting for that? Is there any context for that? Does anyone have that kind of access to you? See, here's the second dynamic that we have to be aware of. You don't have to know everyone, but you should know someone. As we grow as a church, we got to grow larger and smaller at the same time, which means here's how we grow smaller. You don't know everybody at the church, but you got to know somebody. It's making sure that we have environments where you can connect, and that doesn't mean that you have to be the most extroverted, over-the-top, outgoing personality. It just means you need someone in your life who's moving in the same direction as you spiritually. In fact, nearly 3,000 years ago, Solomon would write this in the Proverbs. This is actually in Ecclesiastes, one of his journals. And he says this, 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Likewise, 2 people lying close together can keep each other warm. But how can one be warm alone? A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer. Three are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. Solomon's describing the way that they would travel from city to city. In the ancient Near East civilization, this would be difficult. There would be cold nights, there would be pitfalls, there would be bandits that would steal and rob you. And Solomon says if you're taking a journey on your own, there's all kinds of things that can cripple your journey. But if there's two of you, you fall, someone's there to help you up. It's a cold night, you can cuddle, right? People are attacking you, you can stand back to back and conquer. You can defend each other. In fact, he says three are even better. And so the point that Solomon is making is this: life and faith are a journey that are not meant to be lived alone. They are meant to be carried out with others. Having a couple of others with you provides support and encouragement and accountability. It reinforces your faith in your life. Can I tell you, science is actually catching up with what Solomon wrote. Did you know that being connected with others is good for your health? A researcher named Robert Putnam did a study on the effects of community and isolation on human beings, and he concluded that isolated people are 3 times more likely to die than people who are embedded in community. That should just do it for you right there. Not just that, he says this: people who had bad health habits, okay, smoking, unhealthy eating, obesity, alcohol consumption, but had strong social ties, lived significantly longer than people who had great health habits, out jogging, eating healthy, but were isolated from others. Now, please don't hear me say go be unhealthy. That's not the point of this message. But it's interesting that the one differentiating factor was simply connection. In other words, it's better for you to eat a Dairy Queen Blizzard with friends than organic kale chips by yourself. Right? Now, organic kale chips with friends, that's superpower, right? But they did another study. People who were willing to infect themselves with the common cold. They infected them with the common cold. And people with strong emotional and relational connections did 4 times better fighting off the illness. Relationally connected people were less susceptible. They had less virus. And I don't even know how they measured this, but produced significantly less mucus than isolated people. Fascinating, right? Disconnected people are literally snottier than connected people. That's what the research shows. Putnam said this. He said, if you made no other changes at all in your life, if you didn't start working out, you don't change your diet in any way, you don't start eating better, you don't quit any unhealthy habits, if the only thing you changed in your life is that you joined a small group this year and you weren't in a small group the year before, you cut your chances of dying that year in half. That's fascinating, isn't it? So we're launching life groups next week, and we thought a good marketing campaign for that would just be join or else. Right? ... These are simply documented positive effects on your physical health. Now, imagine the effects on your spiritual well-being. Being connected, we can't escape it. You and I were created in the image of God, and God is communal, God is relational, and so that's built into our DNA. Like water and like oxygen, we need others. We need community. I've experienced this firsthand in my own life. I'm privileged to be a part of a network of pastors that we've been friends for years and years and years. My first youth pastor was a guy named Tom Elmore. And Tom and I are still friends to this day. We've gone on trips together, hung out together, continued to do ministry together. Then when I was 15, I had a youth pastor named Dave Nelson. Dave Nelson is now one of the overseers for our church. He's going to be speaking here in November. You won't want to miss it. Dave makes coffee nervous. He's the most ADHD friend that I have in my life. And if you've seen him speak here before, it's a treat when he comes. But we've been friends for 30 years. I mean, it's amazing. And then when I was 15 and 16, I traveled with a guy named James Grogan, who did speaking and at camps and stuff. And I wanted to learn as a 16-year-old. And now he's one of the overseers for our church. I mean, I'm connected with a guy who spoke at a church in Chicago a few weeks ago named Skylar. Skylar's spoken here for us. And him and I met in 1997. And we've been friends ever since. I mean, this is a group of guys that we text each other and we call each other and we speak at each other's churches. And we've had these friendships for nearly 30 years. I don't know where I'd be without a group of people in my life like that. On top of that, I've been able to participate in life groups here at Westbridge Church throughout the last 19 years, being connected with people here at our church. And when we get together, we laugh and we share life, and we open the scriptures together and we pray together, and we know what's going on in each other's lives, and we pray for each other and encourage each other. Man, you might be thinking this, well, that's great for you, but I haven't found my people. Can I just tell you one of the big myths when it comes to community? It's this: community is something you find. Like somehow you got to discover it. This is one of the biggest relational myths that is perpetuated in our society, as if genuine and authentic community is something that's just waiting to be discovered. You'll just stumble into it, right? And the thought behind this is, as long as you find the right person, or as long as you join the right group, or get the right job, or become involved in the right church, then it will all work out. And this is why so many people in our culture, they jump from relationship to relationship, city to city, job to job, church to church, just looking for that thing that's the perfect fit. And the idea is this: okay, community exists somewhere, I just have to discover it. I got to tap into it. In fact, if it doesn't feel natural, then it must not be authentic community. It must not be real community. That thinking runs so deep that people take it into all aspects of their life. If you have to work at your relationship in marriage, then we must just not be right for each other. Our culture would say that. If you got to work at community with where you're employed, then you've just got a bad boss or bad coworkers. Or if you have to work at community in your neighborhood, you picked the wrong subdivision. If you've got to work at community in your church, that's just the wrong church. They got bad leadership or different people that there's obviously problems there. Genuine and authentic community comes naturally, right? No. Let me tell you about the first date that my wife and I had. Pulled up to her parents' house in my parents' sky blue Chrysler minivan, because I didn't have a car. So I borrowed the minivan, pulled up to her house, and we went to eat at Fuddruckers. Doesn't even exist anymore. And we're sitting at Fuddruckers, and it's not like when you're on a first date, when you're 16 years old, you're both awkwardly nervous. It's not like everything just flows, right? You're like, sipping your soda, like, how are you? It's awkward. And so what do? Like, we didn't know what to do, so then we went to Cub Foods, where we picked up some mint ice cream and some gum. We're standing in line nervously, right? It's kind of awkward. And you're like, kind of like this person, but you're trying to get to know them. And then she actually said to me while we're waiting in line, she goes, I hope our kids have your eyes. I was like, whoa, slow down, girl. But she knew. She knew. And then we swung into Blockbuster. Anybody know what that is, right? And we rented a VHS. And we took it back to her parents' house and watched a movie. On my way home from Blockbuster, I got pulled over. It was so embarrassing. This date was anything but smooth, okay? It was awkward. I just thought, oh, well, she's not the girl for me, right? That was too awkward. No! Because the truth is, anytime that you're getting to know somebody, it can be awkward. Not everything is just smooth sailing right off the bat. The reality is, community isn't effortless. Relationships aren't effortless. See, the myth is, I just got to find it. But the truth is this: true community is something you build. It's not something you discover. It's not something you just stumble into. You got to cultivate it, right? Authentic community is not an accident. Proximity is not the same as community. Proximity is what I have with the person getting their hair cut next to me. We have proximity, but we don't have community. Community is, I'm fully known and I'm fully loved. If you're going to express and experience authentic community, then you got to commit to it. Community is not something you find. It is something you build. What you long for isn't about finding the right mate, or finding the right job, or finding the right neighborhood, or finding the right church. It's about making your marriage and your career and your neighborhood and your church the community that God intended. You bring that to it. Community is not something that is discovered. It is forged. It takes effort. It takes work. It takes time. Now, that's why the Apostle Paul wrote so much about this, about how in our lives we impact one another. So writing to the church in Ephesus in the very first century, the Apostle Paul would say this. He says, always be humble and gentle. Why? Because we're very different from each other. The only way this works is if we are humble and gentle with each other. He says, be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. Make every effort to keep yourselves united in the Spirit, binding yourselves together with peace. For there is one body and one Spirit, just as you have been called to one glorious hope for the future. Paul would say this, you've got to work to maintain the one connection you have. But we're so different. He says, make every effort. It's going to require patience. It's going to require effort. You're going to have to make allowance for each other's faults. Notice he doesn't say, find the people you naturally click with and then huddle up with them, and there you go, you're off to the races. Right? You'll each share a part of a heart necklace. You'll just be besties forever. It'll be great. What does he say? No, he says, this takes work. And then he says, maintain. Make every effort to maintain unity. Well, we don't even have unity. What are you talking about, maintain it? Paul would say, no, you do. You have unity around one thing. Because as different as your personalities are, and as different as your backgrounds are, and as different as your religious upbringings are, and all of the different things you bring to the table, there's one thing you have in common. That you have both experienced the grace of Jesus. And when two people have experienced, they have been marked by the grace of Jesus, they are becoming friends no matter who they used to be. That's the thing. And Paul says, you maintain connection around that and you will experience true community. But it takes effort. It takes work. Yeah, but they're really different than me. We don't have anything in common. Shouldn't I try to discover community with people I just really click with? Paul says, no, the biggest thing you have in common is that you have peace because of God's Spirit. Make every effort to keep yourselves united around that idea and you will experience community. Now, when I think about some of the friends that I've made at this church, I would have never had that opportunity, but it's because God's marked me and God's marked them, and together we recognize we have connection. We don't have anything else in common, but we have connection because of God's grace. Here's the deal. You get into community with people, and sometimes you join a life group, and you have this kind of romanticized idea about what it's going to look like, and then you show up to that life group for the first time, and it's like an awkward first date, and there's somebody there who's way too happy for your liking, and somebody there who's way too talkative, and somebody there who's a little salty, and somebody there who is like, I don't like their theology, and I don't like their politics, and they never talk, and they talk a lot, and they're pretty sensitive. Yeah. Jesus community doesn't mean you get to be in community with people who are easy to be with. It means that you are with people who have been forgiven by Jesus just like you have. And together, we are helping each other. We are linking arms in our brokenness, and we are helping each other move forward to live and love like Jesus. That's what it means. Now, we've got lots of events. We want to help you connect. So coming up here, we've got Momco is one of our, they meet second and fourth Tuesday of every month here at the building, and they have an event coming up to kick that off. You can find that on the events page on the Westbridge Church app. We've got if you're young married, and you're like, I'd love to kind of connect with some other young married couples. We've got a young married barbecue coming up September 27th. Get connected with other couples even before life groups begin. If you're like, I'm an empty nester. I feel like I'm the only one at this church. Can I tell you something? You're not. We did an empty nester event last year and said, hey, let's play bingo. And like 100 of you came. We packed out the lobby. And I got the same response from all the empty nesters. Was like, holy cow, they're looking around the lobby. They go, I thought I was the only one. Nope, there's a whole bunch of you. If you're like, man, I'm 18 to 24, and I'm just like, I feel like I'm not in high school anymore, but I'm a young adult, and I want to meet some people. We've got 18 to 24-year-old groups. For young ladies, for young men, all kinds of opportunities. We want to help you connect, okay? So if this is you, if you're like, okay, how do I build community? I want to take that step. I will lean in. What does that look like? We're going to give you 4 simple steps. And when I say simple, I mean simple, okay? Number 1, sign up. Simple, right? Here at Westbridge, life groups are the vehicle that we're going to use to help people connect. Now, it's not the only way people can connect. We value community, and that happens for people in lots of different ways. But for so many of us, if we don't have an intentional way to do that, it's really difficult to create that as a priority. So we want to give you a tangible, intentional step where you can connect with people in community who are moving in the same direction as you are spiritually, who are part of your faith community. Now, if you're going to join a group, then you've got to physically join a group, right? Good intentions won't get you into a group. You've got to sign up. A couple of weeks ago, we hired Kristen Fisher to take over our life groups. She's hanging out in the lobby right under a sign that says life groups. So it couldn't be more simple. And we're saying that today because all of our life group signups really kick off next week. And so what we want you to do is say this, man, there's some of you here who you could lead a group. And you go, you know what? I want to step into helping facilitate a group because I know that we have the capacity to do that, and I could help lead a group and facilitate connections for other people. Others of you would go, you know what? I'm interested in a group, but I just got some questions, and you can stop by and talk to Kristen and walk through all of your questions. And if you're in a position to lead, I want to encourage you to do that. Sign up. But no matter what, over the next three and a half weeks here, we encourage you, sign up, and then all of our life groups are going to launch the first part of October. But we want to give you a few weeks to sign up, explore the groups, and jump in. Secondly, show up. Every year we get this, a percentage of people who sign up for a group and then they never go. They get really inspired and they're like, yes. And then the time comes and they're like, oh, I don't think so. And so I'm just encouraging you, actually show up. This is going to take some effort on your part, right? You might have to plan for a sitter. You have to make sure you get home from work on time. You might have to record that favorite show instead of watching it live. Here's the thing. Anything that is worth doing in your life requires effort, doesn't it? You know that's true. You put the effort into things that you know matter. Now, real quick, just add up in your mind all of the things in the last 12 months. In the last year, add up in your mind all of the things that you did instead of exercising. How much do you have to show for all of the time that you spent not exercising? You know what that equals? Nothing. Same with me, right? I have nothing to show for the hours that I spent not exercising. The same is true of community. If you add up all of the things that you did instead of being committed to a life group in the next school year, you will have almost nothing to show for it. But in the amount of time that it takes you to search for something to watch on Netflix, an hour and a half, you can have something to show for it, right? Like, you will have people who know you, who support you, who care for you, who are instilling courage for you to act on what you believe, and they will be getting the same thing from you. This is what following Jesus looks like in the context of community. So, sign up, show up. Number 3, be yourself. Don't hide. Bring all of your messy self to your group. In his book, Life Together, Dietrich Bonhoeffer describes the freedom that comes from being completely honest before others. He says this, in confession, the breakthrough to community takes place. The mask you wear before men will do you no good before God. You do not have to go on lying to yourself and your brothers and sisters. You can dare to be a sinner, which we all are. But we live in a world that encourages us to hide the messy parts of us, right? All of social media is like, use a filter, make it look good, like market yourself. And we just live in that culture. And as a result, we kind of wear a mask. I'm okay, I'm good, don't worry about me. How you doing? Fine, I'm doing good, right? I got a happy mask. When I come to church, I got a holy mask. And building community means I have the courage to take off the mask and be myself. And I'll be honest, when that happens, things get messy. That's why we work so hard at Westbridge to keep the shame level low so that we can be ourselves without fear. That you don't have to wear a mask and come in, and because if you wear a mask and you come to church, then the second that slips, you're going to have to disappear. You're afraid that people will get to know the real you. But we want to go, look, come as you are. And together, God accepts us as is, but he loves us too much to leave us there. So together, we will help each other move forward to become who God's created us to be. But that gets real messy. That's why number 4 is so important. Show grace. See, the only way honesty works is in a culture that is saturated by grace. We were built for community. We long for it. But oftentimes, we have a misunderstanding about how the church is supposed to look. And so for a lot of people, it's this place where either the perfect people or the wannabe perfect people show up. And that's why so many have said, you know what? I don't want any part of that hypocrisy. I can't measure up to the insane standards that they want to lay on me. And that's why from the very beginning here at Westbridge, we've used phrases like no perfect people allowed. Come as you are. It's okay to not be okay. We're going to dispense hope to our community, so it's always going to be messy because we're all screwed up people. Just look down your row. It's amazing. Living in loving community means that we give each other the benefit of the doubt. There's some things that you're like, well, there's some things around here that I'm kind of not a big fan of. I'm like, get in line. Me too. My list is way longer than yours. We're always trying to improve. But the reality is we are a church that is filled with imperfect people. That's the reality. We're never going to be the perfect church. If you were looking for the perfect church, I'm so sorry. This is not it. And if you find it, don't go there. You'll screw it up. That's just the reality. This community called the church that Jesus started, this movement, it is a hospital for sinners. It is not a hotel for saints. This is not the place where the most holy and the closest to God all come together. This is not some kind of Christian country club, right? This is what God uses to draw people who are far from him, to bring them back to him. That's all of us. So whatever your past, God wants to redeem your past and make you a part of his family. And here's what I can tell you, folks, that leads to hope, to true hope. We live in a world that traffics in false hopes, shallow hopes. Well, everything will turn out okay. I'm sure it'll work out. Everything happens for a reason. But that's not always true, is it? Maybe things work out. A lot of times they don't. This last week, in the last 48 hours, we have someone from our church who lost her battle with cancer. In the last 48 hours, we've got people who are dealing with all kinds of sickness, illness, disease, injury. My notifications have blown up in the last 72 hours. We've got the violence that we've all experienced over this last week with the school shooting. And we go, God, is there hope? God, where's the hope in all of this? Well, the hope is found in something much deeper than, hey, everything's going to work out. Like, hang in there, bucko, right? Well, like, is there hope that's actually built on a foundation that can withstand all of the chaos that this life throws at us? And that's why the author of Hebrews, writing to the people of the nation of Israel in the first century, says this: let us hold tightly, without wavering, to the hope we affirm, for God can be trusted to keep his promise. Well, what is that promise? What is that hope? It's the hope that one day all things will be as they should be. The promise that God can be trusted to keep his promise is that one day Jesus will return, that one day Jesus will come back, that all of the evil, that all of the violence, that all of the hatred, that all of the sickness and disease and the grief and the loss and all of these things that we experience will one day be vanquished, and that the world will be restored and renewed, and all things will be as they should be. And that is what you can find hope in, even as the world feels chaotic around us. And in the meantime, what do we do in the meantime? That's why the author continues in the next verse and says, so let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect meeting together, as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. The author of Hebrews says this: there's a day coming. Well, what day does everyone talk about and look forward to in our culture? Friday, right? TGIF, thank God it's Friday. We've got a whole restaurant chain just dedicated to celebrating that. But there's another day coming when all things will be set right. And until that day comes, our mandate is to constantly bring hope to each other, that we don't neglect meeting together, but that we gather together, that we spur each other on to acts of love and good works, that we encourage one another. That word encourage just means to instill courage in someone else. And they need a boost, that I can instill courage into them. That's encourage. And to remind each other, whatever difficulty or trial or circumstance life throws at us, there is a day coming and we will be a part of it. So the church isn't a club you attend, it's a family you belong to. And families can be really messy, but that's where you see Jesus lived out. And when we forgive and serve and encourage and bear with one another, the world gets a picture of Jesus, and that's way better than just going to church. So, let's stop going to church. Let's be the church. And this entire message of the scriptures, if you're here and you're just exploring faith and you're trying to figure out, well, like, what is this whole God thing? You should know the message of the scriptures is that God is building a family and he wants you in it. That God can take whatever messiness is in your past and redeem it. That when he looks at you, he doesn't look at you through the lens of your past and your sin and your shame and your brokenness. He looks at you through the lens of his son, Jesus. That Jesus took all of that on himself. And then he was put to death. His body was laid in a tomb. And according to multiple eyewitness accounts, he rose from the dead, which means death is not the end. And you've been invited into a future with God forever. If you've never said yes to that, I want to encourage you and invite you to say yes. And then if you'd say, man, I want to lean into community. That's my next step. I'm going to encourage you to browse through the life groups over the next couple of weeks. Sign up. If you would say, I want to lead a group, I'm going to encourage you to go talk to Kristen, sign up to lead a group. And then right after we pray today, as we close out this series, we're going to celebrate communion together. If your next step is to say yes to following Jesus, would you pray this prayer with me? God, please forgive my sins. Forgive me for the times I've walked away from you. I'm so grateful you never walk away from me. Son, make me your daughter. Help me to put my trust in you, to follow you with my life as best as I know how from this moment on. And God, I pray for every one of us, the temptation for us is to hide the messy parts of ourselves, to wear a mask. But I pray, God, in this space, in this gathering, in this group of people, this movement that you started called the church, that we would dare to be sinners. God, that we would dare to remove the mask, that we could be fully known and fully loved. And that in experiencing that community, God, that we could point the world to you and to your love and to your grace. We thank you and we pray this in your name. Amen.